Hi, I'm Micah Halpern. Thank you for joining me today as I do some thinking out loud. Our first segment is called Background Briefing. The first thing I've been thinking about is the deal of the century. The deal of the century is getting a huge amount of press coverage lately. For those who may have not been paying attention to or even tuned out, President Trump's hyperbolic statements and declarations, the deal of the century, is the president's way of saying he has put together a huge turnkey peace plan that will solve the up until now unsolvable and intractable Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Donald Trump handpicked and appointed members of his most trusted inner circle to personally handle the deal of the century. The genre of the terminology itself leans more towards comic book style syntax than diplomatic jargon. But there is nothing comical about this undertaking. The dream team tasked with concocting this plan consists of trusted son-in-law Jared Kushner, U.S. Ambassador to Israel David Friedman, and U.S. Special Envoy for the Middle East Jason Greenblatt. These three, and Avi Berkowitz, Jared's most trusted protege, are the team and the only people who pounded out this soon-to-be-released plan. Uncharacteristic of Washington, D.C. and an administration that loves to share and leak and tweet and post, there have been almost no reliable leaks as to what actually is in the deal. Just one. And that leak was reported in the Netanyahu-friendly Israeli newspaper Yisrael Hayom, Israel Today. But even here, the sourcing was so unreliable that only one Arabic language and one Turkish paper bothered to pick it up. The source was an email from the Israeli Foreign Ministry. This is a deal which purports to do that which has never been accomplished before. In essence, to go where no man has gone before. With expressions like deal of the century, there could be only two possible reactions. One can either be extremely skeptical or have very high expectations. Those are the two options. The first stage, by the way, of the deal was officially publicly announced, not leaked. It is an economic summit, or as the team prefers to refer to it, an economic workshop designed to raise money for the Palestinian investment in infrastructure. A two-day summit in Bahrain on June 25th and June 26th. This is not aid, it's not a package, but investment. Skepticism aside, the idea makes sense. If political issues have hampered negotiations these past many years, why not try to advance in other directions, like economics and equality of life, or quality of life? Adam Smith famously noted that a rising tide raises all ships, and that school of thought encapsulates the logic behind economy first. That's the Trump peace plan. But no, and I mean literally no, over the years, dating back to the tenure of Yasser Arafat, the first Palestinian leader, the Palestinians have perfected the art of saying no. They do not simply say no. They turn the response into an all or nothing no. They say that they will only come to the table if and when they get everything they want. Their opening argument closes all dialogue and negates any negotiation. And that's one reason why, for decades, negotiations between Israel and the Palestinians have failed to come to conclusions when addressing issues of politics, borders, the capital city, refugees, and other contentious challenges. This White House, under Trump, realizes the problem. Reality has set in. The Palestinian leadership continues to reject every proposal put before them by the United States and other concerned countries like Egypt and Saudi Arabia, the EU, etc. There are no talks, no interaction with any United States or Israeli diplomats or political leaders. And now the Palestinians have rejected the plan before they or any of us have ever gotten to read it. So the dream team, charged with crafting this greatest of all deals, needed to figure out how to advance the deal without one of the two players. And they came up with the economic workshop. Speaking in broad terms about the deal of the century, Jason Greenblatt predicted that the deal would be greeted with criticism and laid it out this way, and I'm quoting here. The challenge of reaching a peace deal is extraordinary. What we hope is a full, comprehensive peace agreement. If that can't be reached, then positive steps forward to help both Palestinians and Israelis and the region would be very good as well. The U.S.-led economic summit in Bahrain, with or without Palestinian participation, is an important component to the deal. The summit without Palestinian presence and participation illustrates that the Palestinians are not mature enough to handle some of these issues, their own issues confronting them and hamstringing their own development and destiny. The adults in the room will make decisions. In the areas of diplomacy and negotiations, the Palestinians have not yet reached that level. And there are bigger issues to be tackled, like Iran and terror and extremism. Issues that trump, pun intended there, the Palestinian issue. What a shame for the Palestinian people. Put Israel and peace talks aside. The United States and so many of their neighboring countries are pulling for them. Their leaders have denied them another opportunity for growth and economic development. And if in the end the deal of the century is not accepted, maybe the small incremental improvements that the team does accomplish will improve the lives of many people living in the Middle East. There is an important sidebar to the deal of the century that must be addressed. Jordan's King Abdullah II is in a very precarious situation. Abdullah, who was never a very strong leader, is now in a more weakened position than ever in his tenure as Jordanian leader. He is in danger of becoming even weaker, and he is certainly in danger of being overthrown. Countries in the region see Jordan's king as irrelevant, and they have no interest and no need for Jordan. Abdullah is not looped into any of the talks, strategy, conversation, or meetings. Washington barely speaks to him, and even when he travels to D.C., he gets very little respect. Abdullah II of Jordan has been given no details on the famous peace plan. Israel barely bothers to speak to the Jordanian king, and yet Jordan needs Israel just like it needs backing from Washington and regional leaders like Saudi Arabia and Egypt. Jordan needs their economic aid and needs their commitment to protect and defend the monarchy, his monarchy. But that aid has been dwindling. Leaders do not see the value of Jordan. Jordan is petrified of neighboring countries, Syria, petrified of Assad, ISIS, Hezbollah, and Iran. On Jordan's other border, Iraq is teaming up with Iran. Jordan has been a magnet for refugees fleeing Syria and Iraq. With those refugees come extremists from ISIS and Al-Qaeda, as well as Iranian agents. But Israel has not forsaken Jordan. Israel is not throwing Abdullah to his neighboring wolves. Israel is helping make Jordan secure, and it is probably Israel that leaked intelligence to an Arabic media outlet that there was a plot to assassinate key leaders in the Jordanian government. Once upon a time, Jordan was an important ally to Israel, an important player in the region. Today, the Hashemite kingdom is no longer essential. In 1990, Jordan chose not to condemn neighbor Saddam Hussein of Iraq, thinking it was wise politically and diplomatically. Jordan decided to remain neutral as the United States took action against the tyrant in Baghdad. In response to Jordan's decision, the United States pulled important aid from Jordan. It has taken time, but now Jordan is back on serious footing when it comes to U.S. foreign aid. They have gone from receiving a relatively paltry sum of $145 million a year to $1 billion in aid a year. But that's always on questionable footing, always. That aid is important to Jordan, but pales when compared to the sums given to Egypt and Israel. Even with that aid, Jordan is in deep financial trouble. Unlike many of the kingdoms in the Arab region, Jordan has no oil and no natural gas. Jordan no real exports to speak of. Their GDP is a measly $40 billion. Their average income is $4,000 a year. Jordan's foreign debt today is over $19 billion. And if it were not for a serious austerity program right now enacted by the king, his country's foreign debt would be as high as 90% of Jordan's GDP. Now it's 60%. Not too long ago, Jordan had the most pro-Western leadership in the entire Arab Middle East. Jordan, along with Egypt, has an official peace treaty with Israel. And that treaty has helped Jordan maintain a semblance, however slight, of relevance. The treaty itself became a valuable commodity for Jordan because Jordan had a relationship with Israel and because the United States had a relationship with Israel. In a diplomatic play on piggyback, Jordan and the United States had a relationship, and a good one. And being an ally of the United States after the Gulf War was significant. Jordan had something to offer the United States. They could exert influence and pressure upon Palestinian leadership. However, today, the role that Jordan plays in the Middle East is limited. The United States and Israel know that, but neither of them wants to see Jordan go down, go under, or get swallowed up. The alternative to the king of Jordan is an even more economically unstable country. The alternative would almost certainly be a hostile country to the west, and that situation is far worse. Those trying to overthrow Jordan right now are extremist Muslim groups and anti-Western. So despite its current status, for the sake of a stable region, Jordan and King Abdullah II must be reinvigorated and revitalized. Israel and the United States know that they must make certain that Jordan remains stable in order to keep the region stable. And a stable region is best for everyone. Coming up next, points of view. Here's what some important voices have been talking about. First up is an editorial from the New York Times about anti-Semitism in Europe. In print, it appeared on May 25th, and it was entitled "Anti-Semitism Rises Anew in Europe." Online, it appeared the day before, and it was entitled "The Old Scourge of Anti-Semitism Rises Anew in Europe." Very similar headlines. But here it was followed online by a very long sub-headline. And here's that. Quote, "Jews face threats from extremists on the left and the right. A third of European Jews have considered emigrating," unquote. The editorial begins. For years, Europe maintained the comforting notion that it was earnestly confronting anti-Semitism after the horrors of the Holocaust. It now faces the alarming reality that anti-Semitism is sharply on the rise, often from the sadly familiar direction of the far right, but also from Islamists and the far left. The worrisome trend was underscored by a report issued by the German government this month, showing that anti-Semitic incidents in Germany had increased almost 20% in 2018 from the previous year to 1,799, with 69 classified as acts of violence. The most common offense was the use of a swastika and other illegal symbols. The rest ranged from online incitement to insults to arson, assault, and murder. The editorial then relates more evidence that anti-Semitism is not simply a passing issue and trend, but is growing and getting worse. And finally, the editorial concludes by explaining that the Jews of Europe know this information and these details only too well. The Jews of Europe feel the anti-Semitism. And the editorial pleads with readers to stand up and not tolerate anti-Semitism when they see it happening around them. And here I quote, "All this is not news to European Jews, who for some time have been feeling less and less safe and welcome in their home countries. After polling more than 16,000 Jews in 12 European countries at the end of last year, the European Union's Agency for Fundamental Rights concluded that anti-Semitic hate speech, harassment, and fear of being recognized as a Jew were becoming the new normal. 85% of the respondents thought anti-Semitism was the biggest social and political problem in their countries. Almost a third said they avoided Jewish events or sites because of safety concerns. More than a third said they considered emigrating in the 5 years preceding the survey. As appalling as these statistics should be to every European, they should also ring a loud alarm for every American leader of conscience. Speak up now when you glimpse evidence of anti-Semitism, particularly within your own ranks, or risk enabling the spread of this deadly virus." Our second op-ed is not written at all. It is a do-it-yourself, a DIY project, a do-it-yourself project. It's a kippah. A kippah, it looks like this. In response to the rise of anti-Semitism in Germany, the German paper The Bild, or Der Bild, asked everyone to wear a kippah. And to accomplish that, they published a do-it-yourself kippah. And I want to show you exactly how it looks. With directions and a cutout of the directions itself. I'm cutting out now. It's so simple to make. You cut around the circle, very simply. This was in the paper itself. It's a tabloid. In the paper itself, you cut around the circle. And then these black marks, which you'll see, you cut out. The black marks you cut out. And as you cut out these triangles, you allow the kippah to be folded and then rounded like this. And hence, it becomes a kippah like this. So it's a rounded kippah with texture. Okay? It's a little too small. The point is, and this is what's essential here, everyone should have a kippah. The editors of the Bild said everyone should have one. Every home, every German, everyone. Though this is a small kippah, and it looks sort of good on a table, but it wouldn't look so good on your head because it's way too small, especially comparing it to my larger kippah. You could sort of see the difference. That's not the point. It's probably a small kippah because of space in the newspaper. It's a tabloid paper. The point is the principle and the function as well. Even if people do not wear the kippah, they will have a kippah in their home. They can display it. This is a very important move. Yasher koach to the Bild editorial team. Good for you. Coming up, commentary through cartoons where pictures tell the story. Let's look at 3 cartoons today. The first is from Tallahassee, Florida, a paper there, and it was drawn by Bill Day. It celebrates Florida and Israel. The cartoon was drawn while Florida Governor Ron DeSantis was on an official state trip to Israel. It appeared on May 28, 2019. The word Florida is in the middle of the Israeli flag, and the O in Florida is a Star of David. In the middle of the star is a flamingo, the symbol of Florida. The second cartoon is from the Middle East, actually. It's drawn by a Jordanian named Osama Hajjaj. And it was also appeared on the very same day, May 28, 2019. It's called Trump Iran. The device the artist used in the cartoon is wild hair. Trump's wild hair and the Iranian Grand Ayatollah's wild beard. The ends of the hair are serpents and snakes. The final cartoon is from Newsday, and it's by Matt Davies. It was published on May 26th, and in this cartoon, National Security Advisor John Bolton is dressed like peg-leg Captain Ahab from Melville's Moby Dick. He's holding a harpoon, and in the background is a picture of a whale, which is labeled Iran. Bolton says to Trump, "I have an idea." In a moment, more of my own perspective and a few predictions. It's very important to sort out rhetoric from the objectives in understanding President Donald J. Trump. At a press conference held in Tokyo as part of his official visit with the Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, President Trump explained that he wants Iran to be non-nuclear. He explained that he does not want a war, and he certainly does not want a change in regime. Trump said, and here's the quote, "I really believe that Iran would like to make a deal, and I think that's very smart of them, and I think that's a possibility to happen. It has a chance to be a great country with the same leadership. We aren't looking for a regime change. I just want to make that clear. We are looking for no nuclear weapons." That was not rhetoric. That is actually his objective. We just spoke about a cutout kippah in the Bild newspaper. This is what stimulated the paper to come up with that innovative, creative, powerful response. Felix Klein, Germany's government commissioner on anti-Semitism, announced that Jews should not wear a kippah in public. Klein said, and I'm quoting here, "I cannot recommend to Jews that they wear the skull cap at all times everywhere in Germany," unquote. In response to Klein's remarks, Israeli President Reuven Rivlin said the statement of the German government's anti-Semitism commissioner that it would be preferable for Jews not to wear a kippah in Germany out of fear for their safety shocked me deeply. This is not the first time German leadership has warned Jews to be careful and not wear a kippah. Last year, the head of the German Jewish community said the same thing, or very similar. But he was more specific, and he said not to wear a kippah in public, in especially large municipalities. Israelis, President Rivlin, a native-born Israeli, a Sabra, with deep roots in Israel, did not and do not understand what it means to live with anti-Semitism. The Palestinian Authority has arrested a would-be ISIS terrorist. She, yes, she, is a 23-year-old teacher named Ala Bashir. Bashir's plan was to murder as many Israeli Jews as possible. Under interrogation, Ala admitted to her plan and to who trained her. She said that she began life as a potential terrorist by affiliating with Al-Qaeda and moved on to ISIS. She said that she was recruited via a Telegram group, which is a highly encrypted website. Al-Bashir told her arresters that ISIS leaders from Syria and Gaza taught her how to assemble explosive devices. The PA has been watching Bashir for some time, but because she's the niece of a general in the PA's internal security division, until she had a real plan in place, she was left alone. Now the incongruity with this arrest by the PA needs to be explained. Despite tensions in the political sphere, security interaction between Israel and the PA works very well. Security teams are in constant contact and work together towards preventing terror. It's a two-way street. Israel has thwarted attacks against Palestinians, and now the PA has thwarted an attack against Israelis. And yet, PA political leadership continues to support and even pay terrorists to attack Jewish Israelis. So why stop an ISIS terrorist? After all, what's the difference? Dead Israelis are dead Israelis, no matter if they're killed by PA terrorists or ISIS terrorists. Both groups are united in their desire to murder as many Israelis as possible. The difference is a cause and motivation. Palestinian Authority leadership does not profess the same ideals as ISIS. Gaza leadership, however, does share some of those ISIS ideology and emphasis on some of that ISIS ideology. Unlike ISIS, Palestinians do not want an Islamic caliphate. So despite similar desires to murder Jews and to strike terror in Israel, ISIS and the PA are not in agreement about fundamental issues. And that's why al-Bashir was arrested by the PA before perpetrating terror attacks against Israelis. Supreme leader of Iran, the Grand Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, posted a major critique of the president and foreign minister of Iran on his official website on Wednesday, May 22nd. This is a serious and direct attack against his president, Hassan Rouhani, and his foreign minister, Javad Zarif. Khamenei said, and I'm quoting here from the website, "In some extent, I did not believe in the way that the nuclear deal was implemented. Many times I reminded both the president and the foreign minister," unquote. This announcement on his website is an official withdrawal of support. That means the supreme leader is leaning elsewhere and to the right, extreme. Never lose sight of the fact that he, president and foreign minister, serve at the pleasure of the supreme leader. When the deal was formulated, the Iranian president and Iranian foreign minister made it very clear that they represented a more liberal Iran, and the nuke deal was in the best interest of all of Iran. The Ayatollah was skeptical then, but went along and gave the deal and the president a chance. Now the Ayatollah is reminding everyone of his skepticism about the deal in 2015. This is his way of saying to Rouhani and Zarif, your days in office are numbered. Twice in 1 week, Israel intercepted weapons, components, and other tools of war headed for Gaza. How, you might ask? The materials were confiscated at the Erez crossing going into Gaza. All the items were being delivered through the mail. They were all ordered online for delivery to Gaza, and then they were stopped at the crossing. In total, 372 packages were intercepted. On Tuesday, 200 packages were intercepted, and on the following Thursday, 172 were intercepted. Look at this list. This is what the Israelis found and confiscated. Multi-routers, tasers, weapons, baklavas, which are ski masks, lasers, airbag mechanisms, field phones, laser-making lathes, navigation equipment, telescopic sights, and military-issue shoes, especially boots. Hamas and other extremist groups in Gaza are trying very hard to arm themselves. An Israeli backpacker named Bar Azulai spent 4 hours in Tehran, even more, over 4 hours. Azulai was flying from India to Bucharest, Romania, for his brother's prenuptial celebration. On the way, someone on his plane had a heart attack, and the plane was forced to land at the nearest airport. That meant Tehran, Iran. Azulai was lucky. Throughout the 4+ hours of emergency delay, he was on the ground. The Israeli fully expected the Iranian authorities to demand that he deplane, and that would be the end. Instead, in the end, more than 4 tense hours later, the plane took off for Istanbul. Speaking about the medical emergency and the plane's diversion to Tehran, Azulai said, and here's the quote, "After we landed, a medical crew boarded the plane, and I just sat there hoping that they won't take us off. I promised myself that if I have to leave, it definitely won't be alone," unquote. Once the medical team stabilized the patient and he was removed from the plane, we waited another 4 hours, and that was it. Wow. We've been thinking out loud about a lot today. Now that you know what I've been thinking, let me know what you're thinking. Email me at micah@jbstv.org. Tweet me at Micah Halpern. Tell me what you think. Before we end, let me leave you with one piquante piece of information. Did you know that we speak a lot about the Middle East? The term Middle East probably originated in the 1850s in the British Indian Office. But it often went unused until the American naval strategist Alfred Thayer Mahan used it in 1902 to designate the area between Arabia and India. That's when the term Middle East took off. During this time, the British and Russian empires were vying for influence in Central Asia, a rivalry which became known as the Great Game. Mahan realized not only the strategic importance of the region, but also of its center, the Persian Gulf. He labeled the area surrounding the Persian Gulf as the Middle East and said that after Egypt's Suez Canal, it was the most important passage for Britain to control in order to keep the Russians from advancing towards British India. Mahan first used the term in an article, The Persian Gulf and International Relations, published in September 1902 in the National Review, a British journal. Mahan's article was reprinted in the Times of London. Then, in October, the Times published a 20-article series entitled The Middle Eastern Question, written by Sir Ignatius Valentine Shirole. Sir Ignatius expanded and better defined the concept of what we call the Middle East. Before the popularization of the term the Middle East, the area was called the Near East, or the Ancient Near East. Thank you for thinking out loud with me, Micah Halpern. Let's think out loud again next week on JBS.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support JBS with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double high or more. Simply visit the JBS website at jbstv.org and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please, indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check to JBS, P.O. Box 180, Riverdale Station, Bronx, New York, 10471. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive with our compliments. And we thank you for your kind support.